Hey guys, Bart from TST Industries here. In this video, we're going to show you the installation of this Fender Eliminator on a 2007 through 2012 Honda CBR 600RR. What this part does is enables you to remove this bulky fender part off your bike and move your license plate mounting to this location under the servo case. So this is a fairly simple installation, made even simpler with the use of our instruction sheet and the template used for drilling the holes in the servo case. So let's begin by taking off the license plate off your current setup, and we will be retaining the hardware that's holding your license plate on currently, and we're using that on the TST Industries setup. It'll be necessary to remove the passenger seat or passenger seat cowl, as well as the driver's seat. Driver's seat has two fasteners in the rear portion. These will need to come out. What I like to do with these is actually leave them in the seat. It makes the reinstallation a lot easier. Now we will remove the tail fairing. To do that, we will be removing these four fasteners. Now, while grasping it here, you will need to flex the tail out slightly outwards of the bike, and then move it up and towards the back, clearing all the geometry here. Now we will need to remove the electrical plugs for all the lighting equipment on the Fender, and also remove these four fasteners, two on this side and two on the opposite side in the same location, and that will allow us to remove the fender. We'll peel back the boot. I'm using a little flathead screwdriver. This makes taking out the plugs a lot easier. Simply pry up on the locking tab and pull the male plug back. When I get to the last bolt, I will loosen it and then continue removing it while I support the fender from the bottom, so it doesn't just drop when the last bolt's out. I will now come around to the back of the bike, and I will pull this fender off towards the rear and then drop it. You might need to pry against these two parts just a little bit to clear the heat shield and other geometry. So if you notice here, we have a TST Industries end cap on this canister. This is a stock canister. For completely stock canister and cap, there is captive geometry here on these side shields. That's why we need to pull back and then down. Now, in the next step, we will be removing the servo case that is located directly beneath this servo and mounted these two fasteners. So I will now get the wiring out of the way to have nice access to these fasteners. I will begin to undo these. I will have to hold the servo case from the bottom as I undo this fastener. Now we'll retain these fasteners here in their original location. It'll make it easy to refasten the servo case back in its place. So now we're going to bring the servo case over to our workbench, and we're going to plan to install this bracket onto the servo case. If you follow the instructions, you can cut out the template, and you can place that template over the servo case just like this. All these bent tabs here are locating geometry so that you get your holes aligned just perfectly. What I'm going to do is use some masking tape to keep this in place once I locate it properly. All right. Now that we have the template set up on top of the servo case, we can drill 2 holes right in the centers here. I'm using a 1/4 inch drill. You can also use a 6mm drill. I'm going to start drilling now. I'm going to find the center with the tip of the drill bit and get a good bite on the material before I start drilling. Now that the holes are drilled, we can remove the template. At this time, what I like to do is slot these holes out sideways just a little bit, basically perpendicular to the mounting movement here. So these slots in the bracket will allow some room to adjust in this direction. And if I slot these out just slightly, we will also be able to rotate the bracket. Definitely don't want to make these holes too large. You don't want to slot it out too much. You still need enough surface area for the nuts and washers to mount to. Okay, so now we will need to make the choice of which slots we will be using for our mounting. I'm going to pick these 2 slots here, and I will install the bracket onto the servo case in this orientation. If you look at it sideways, you have your servo case and the bracket goes this way. Now we will need to choose the appropriate hardware from our hardware pack. This particular kit is purposed for an 04 to 07 1000 RR and also 03 to the present 600 RR. So it has some redundant fasteners here. We will need to discard these. We'll also not be using the foam pad. We will use 2 screws, 2 washers, 2 nuts, and discard the rest. Now I will mount the bracket onto the servo case in the orientation that I showed before. I will use 1 screw through the bracket, through the servo case, insert a washer over that screw, and then fasten a nut onto that screw. Do the same for the other slot. And I'm going to get these nice and tight with my hands. I want to be able to preserve the orientation as it is, but also have some adjustability, because we're going to put this on the bike and do a final adjustment of where this will lie. So once again, I'm going to tighten it up some more, and now we will bring it to the bike for a final adjustment. All right, so now we will be bringing the assembly back to the bike for the final fitment test. We'll put the servo case back in its place and hold it tight to the bike to simulate where it's gonna sit. I'm just gonna make sure that this bracket will sit center and level. And I think I've I've done that here. Now I'm just gonna take this whole assembly down again, carefully. And I'm going to tighten up these bolted connections. Now you want to use enough tightening force so that these don't spin off the bike from the vibration. It's also a very good idea to use some Loctite. All right. Now I will mount it back to the bike around the servo, and I will begin to thread in the fasteners for the servo case. Now in this step, I will install the license plate onto this new bracket. I will reuse the hardware that I took off my stock setup. As an added adjustability, we built in these slots here in this bracket so that even after you mount this license plate, you still have some movement side to side, so you could fine-tune and make sure that your license plate is as centered as it can be. So right now I'm just going to get them a little snug and do a final center and level test, and then tighten everything up. If I come around the back, I will center my license plate and then make sure it's level. And now I'll just tighten down the bolts, and this is ready to go. One additional thing worth noting is that in most locations around the world, you're required to have a light illuminating your license plate. So we do have a kit that we sell along with these Fender Eliminators. It is available on our website. We also have an installation instruction video for that particular kit. It can be seen on our YouTube channel. And now the installation of this Fender Eliminator is pretty much complete. I'll just have to replace all the body components on the bike. So now this install is complete, and once you figure out your lighting situation, you'll be ready to ride.